Wisconsin Eye is at a training conference of the County Veteran Service Officers Association of Wisconsin. We're talking to Jane Babcock. She's the Kewaunee County Veteran Service Officer and a member of the Executive Committee for the statewide association and a retired reservist. Jane, thank you so much for talking to us about this.
Thank you, Steve.
Such an important area. I think you want to talk about the memorial service benefits. So I guess my first question, when a veteran dies in the state of Wisconsin, is there a set procedure for county veteran service officers that they follow?
Well, there are variations office to office in the order in which we do things, but of course we watch every obituary for the veteran, possibly spouse and things like that, in case we need to notify the VA. Every veteran that passes, we need to let the VA know. There may be receiving benefits that need to be stopped and things like that. We also are going to go ahead and we're going to order a presidential memorial certificate that will be issued to the family. It's signed by the president, recognizing the honorable service of that veteran. And we send a letter to the next of kin, letting the next of kin know that there may be some benefits that they may be entitled to.
Now, when you say other benefits, what possibly is out there, Jane?
Well, veterans, of course, have the opportunity to be buried in a veteran cemetery. There's 135 national ones. And then here in the state, we have 3, one in Spooner, one in King, and one in Union Grove. So if a veteran wants to reserve a space, we can help them do that. And the family themselves may be entitled to a burial allowance or burial plot stipend. And that depends on whether or not that veteran was receiving any benefits from the VA or if their death was related to their service.
When I see some of these memorial plaques and the headstones, who's responsible for those? Is that another benefit?
Yes, the Department of Veterans Affairs has the white standard headstone that you see in our cemeteries for veterans, but that could actually be issued here in the state of Wisconsin. There's also a marble version of a stand-up, and then there's laying down flat for some of the cemeteries that require a flat headstone. But there's also the bronze markers. Sometimes you'll see them on the back of the headstone that already exists, and that's to recognize that there is a veteran there. Nowadays, most mausoleums and these crematoriums, especially the columbariums, there's no room for a plaque that big. So the VA decided in order to recognize our veterans, they needed to make something different. So they've established a medallion that comes in 3 different sizes. One is small enough to put on a drawer, and then it goes all the way up to a 5-inch medallion that recognizes veteran of whatever branch of service.
As hard as you and other professionals work to find, to learn about the death of a veteran, what happens when you miss it and you may not learn of it for a year or 2 later? Are there some benefits that can still be conferred?
Oh, definitely. We've had families come in that the veteran may have been cremated, and the flag, of course, was issued. All the funeral homes keep the flags, and then we reissue them as they give us the paperwork for that veteran. And then the family may say, okay, he's cremated, and the spouse may decide to keep the remains for a while, and then 5 years later have them both placed. So then we can go ahead and do those things. It's not a matter of time.
You're talking to family members at a moment of personal loss, deep personal loss and trauma. How do you come in subtly to try to make them aware of the benefits that their loved one may be eligible for?
That's where the CVSOs have a great relationship with the funeral directors in our areas, because the funeral directors will call us as soon as they have a veteran or a person that's passed that they suspect might be a veteran. Or the family comes to them and says, well, he served during the Korean War, but they may not have his discharge papers.
Right.
And so then we can work with the Register of Deeds throughout the country to locate those documents for them, or the National Archives. And then once we've got those documents, then we can do all the other benefits that apply.
Boy, that's a fascinating issue. When a family member says, well, he served in the Korean War, but we don't have any official papers for that. Is that a long and arduous process to go back through archives to verify that she or he may indeed have served in the Korean War?
Well, that's part of our technology now. It's moving faster and faster into the point where we can see them online. As long as you have access, CVSO is going through the accreditation process. We can go online for the state of Wisconsin veterans and see whether or not there's an archived record there in Madison. And in an emergency situation, we just call them, tell them what's going on, and we've had the document to us within just a few minutes.
There must be situations. Are there situations where a family member says she or he served in the Korean War, yet you cannot find the verifying materials and the documents? What happens then?
Unfortunately, yes, that happens. And sometimes we find that perhaps they weren't discharged under honorable conditions, or they didn't complete their ROTC, so they never actually went on to active duty. So sometimes we have to give the family that type of disappointing information. But other times it's just a matter of getting a record that that person was in service and came out of service. So the Department of Defense can verify that through their payroll records. That record may be missing out of the archives due to the fire in St. Louis or something of that nature, but we can find those records or at least get the knowledge that they served.
What do you find? You've talked to a lot of surviving family members. What do they find most comforting in terms of the federal benefits or the headstones? What really touches them in terms of honoring their loved one?
There's a program called Funeral Honors, and that usually is the most intimate part of the personal relationship of the passing of their veteran. And that is when they either have a uniformed veteran standing there at the funeral home, or out at the grave site. There may be several veterans. They may do a honors volley, or
That's
they may
a 21
play
gun
taps.
salute or play taps?
Yes, and it may not necessarily be 21 guns. 3 rounds is
Understand.
generally, and depending on the number of veterans that we have available. And again, that can be coordinated through the funeral home director. But we provide, the VA provides the ammunition and things like that. So,
What's the most satisfying part of your job in terms of working with the survivors of veterans, Jane?
oftentimes it's just letting someone know that you're part of the family. You're not in this alone. There's someone that has seen this and or knows perhaps a grief group or anything else that might help them. We're also aware of the state and federal benefits, not only from the VA, but through our local agencies that may give them what they need.
And sometimes on Veterans Day, children or different groups place small flags. Where do they get those flags? Is that part of your office?
Generally speaking, that's in larger counties, that's usually provided by the office. And it's coordinated through the veteran service organizations in our counties. In our smaller counties, especially in the smaller cemeteries where there might only be 4 or 5 veterans, they purchase the flags themselves and take them. But when I was in Manitowoc County, Evergreen Cemetery has over 2,500 veterans.
2,500.
And the cemetery goes through the next week, picks them up and stores them. And then the next year we did give them enough replacement flags.
2,500.
So I still go on Saturday mornings before Memorial Day
Do you?
because that cemetery is important to me.
I understand.
I know some of the names.
I'm sure you do. Jane Babcock is the Kewaunee County Veterans Service Officer. Thank you for talking about the death benefits honoring our veterans.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.